Jackie Chan, Justin Timberlake, Rihanna, Sandra Bullock, and Eminem. First, welcome to Be Real, Be Yourself. I'm Kevin Cohan. The names above, all some pretty strong personalities in their respected industries. The one thing they all have in common, they were all bullied. Jackie Chan, surprisingly, was bullied because he didn't know how to fight, which was very interesting due to the fact that he has extensive knowledge in that area today. I can only imagine what it would be like going to his high school reunion. Either there were a lot of apologies or some people weren't even wearing name tags. I would just come up to him and say, "Hey, Mr. Chan, do you want to just watch me beat myself up in the parking lot? I can do that for you right now. It'd be a lot easier than you doing it." So, something at a real young age, we can really devise plans of evil pretty quick. There's a quote by Abraham Lincoln. It's one of my favorite. Nearly all men can stand adversity, but if you want to test a man's character, give him power. And at a young age, I felt power really quick. My brother and I remember us being at the bus stop and came up with this plan to pretend that our next door neighbor didn't even exist. He had done something to wrong us the day before. And so we would team up to come up with a plan to basically ignore him. And we had everyone else at the bus stop pretend that he didn't exist either. There's nothing worse than taking away someone's existence. That is until the next day at the bus stop it happened to us. Yeah. So you get to learn a lot about power, and also when that power is taken away from you. I learned that at a young age. It doesn't feel really good. So if you don't know by now, we're talking about the topic of bullying. A few years ago, for example, I worked at an all-girls treatment facility. And one of the things we used to do was we would put each girl in a position of power. They would rotate and being able to lead the girl, 12 other teenage girls. And they would issue out the chores and lead them from task to task and transition them. And each girl would handle that position differently. Some of the girls would act like a queen and treat everyone like they're peasants. And then other girls would operate based on servant leadership and come alongside and teach and try to help the other girls learn the process. So who do you think had the best leadership style in those situations? It was definitely not the queen. She was overthrown 10 times out of 10. The power that went to her head, it never worked out, and she always ended up having a mutiny on her hands, everyone wanting to fight her for that power and try to take it away. So as the staff there, we didn't immediately give up on her. We pulled her aside and tried to teach her about servant leadership. And that most of the time worked out pretty well. We would teach her how to be assertive, yet not too aggressive. And then she would be able to learn how to lead others without using force and trying to use too much power, because there needs to be a good balance. Now, I'm not trying to sit here and pretend I have all the answers to bullying, but I will suggest a couple. The Bible in Philippians 2:3 says, "Do nothing from selfishness or empty conceit, but with humility of mind, regard one another as more important than yourselves." Now, I've got a 3 and a 4-year-old boys, and it's interesting some of the things that they will choose to fight about. Like just this morning, they fought over a pair of socks. My son, Jace, the younger of the two, he snatched them out of my hand and grabbed them real quick. And I said, "Hey, he's got them, so he's going to be able to wear them." He made the faster decision, and my other son didn't like that. So he's wearing the socks for a while, and next thing you know, he ends up just taking them off and giving them to my other son, which was fantastic. Could he have done that sooner and not watched his brother have a temper tantrum? Sure, he could have, and that would have been great for all of us not to have to endure that. But the fact is that he did, and he considered his brother's his needs more important than his own, and that really was a great thing to see. There's sometimes we can see those victories. So humility is one way to conquer bullying by considering someone else's interests more important than your own. And that is really one way to take the power away from yourself and transfer it to someone else. And that balances things out. There's a couple things I'm really trying to instill in my kids. One is the ability to say I'm sorry, and the other is to ask for help. Those are two things that I wish I would have learned a lot more of growing up. And believe it or not, asking for help is one of the things that can conquer bullying quite significantly. The National Bullying Prevention Center in 2010 did a study, and they learned that more than half of bullying situations stop when a peer intervenes on behalf of the student being bullied. So Solomon, the wisest king to have ever lived, the wisest person to have ever lived, in the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 4, verse 9 and 10, two are better than one because they may have a good return for their labor. For if either of them falls, the one will lift up his companion. But woe to the one who falls when there is not another to lift him up. So, what can we do to help prevent bullying? We can be there for other people. To lift them up when you see them fall down. So, don't look away. Ask for help. If you've bullied someone, say you're sorry. Have that humility to consider someone else's interests more important than your own. And lastly, forgiveness. Yep, I just dropped the big F-bomb, to forgive. Martin Luther King, I'll close with a quote from him. This sums it up pretty good. We must develop and maintain the capacity to forgive. He who is devoid of the power to forgive is devoid of the power of love. There is some good in the worst of us and some evil in the best of us. When we discover this, we are less prone to hate our enemies.